This is one of my favorite presentations, this little topic, now is the time. I could stop right now and say, now is the time. You can't do it yesterday, right? Can you start your business yesterday? No. And so this is all blatantly self-obvious, but I love some of these little graphs that I've created here. As you can see, I'm an expert artist. It gets better. I have some amazing pictures coming up here that I've drawn. I went to architecture school also. I went to for 3 years I went to architecture school, and I was also asked to leave that. That was a totally separate reason, but you can see my art skills here just screaming through these slides. All right, the curve, this sine cosine curve that you see is just a generic assumption of the cyclical nature of our economy, right? The economy goes up and down over time, right? Sometimes it's bad, sometimes it's good, right? We all know that. So right now, this assumption is that the economy is getting better, that things are looking up, okay? That we're in a growth phase of our economic cycle, right? If you start a business then let's take it back to, let's say 1999. We're all old enough to remember 1999. You could sell anything to anybody in 1999. The economy was growing at 3 or 4%. Everyone seemed wealthy. We all had money to spend. We were spending the money aggressively. And so in 1999, it was not hard to sell anything, right? And you could sell a lot of stuff that was maybe marginal. And then in 2001, when the economy went in the tank, tons of businesses also went in the tank because they had learned to operate in the best times, right? As opposed to operating in the worst of times, they thought everything was like this. I'm going to sell 52 cars a week, every week, for the rest of my life. I'm going to be a real estate agent, and I'm going to buy a house for $100,000, spend 3 weeks remodeling it, and sell it for $200,000. That's never going to end. And that's where we were in 1999. And so we were on this red line. My business is doing great. It's doing great. It's doing great. Ooh, the economy's starting to slow down. What happens to my business now? Well, that guy who was flipping houses, taking $100,000 and selling it for a $200,000 house, that business went to zero overnight. Does he have any ability to modify his business and make anything different to stay in business? That guy probably doesn't have that skill set, because every single management experience he's ever had has been one of what? Ease. This is all I have to do is buy it. Someone's going to buy this house for me in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. It's just easy. They've never had to grow during bad times. They've never had bad times as the overall economic indicator. And so we don't know what path they're going to go on. So when times are good, the question is, are the sales that you're enjoying the result of you being a great entrepreneur with a great product, or just the fact that right now anyone's buying anything, right? You don't know that. It could just be the sign of the times. And that can hide your flaws. The fact that your business is inherently broken may not become visible for years if the economy is doing great. I need consulting. Oh, I want more consulting. Give me some network consulting classes. We're growing 32% in the last year. We can afford that. And so your business does great and does great. But all of a sudden things just start slack off, and oh no, who knows what's going to happen. And then on the other hand, say we're at a negative growth situation like we are right now, right? Just yesterday they announced that the economy was not growing as fast as we all thought it was, right? So right now we're certainly, if anything, at a flat situation. If your business is prospering now, though, what can we assume? That you know what you're doing. You've got a good product, you execute it well, you have a good price point, everything is doing well. And let's say 2 years from now, the economy starts to really go at 3, 4, 5% and take off again. Your business is perfectly positioned because you grew that business in a time where it was fiscally responsible, making good decisions, not selling just because everyone was buying, you know. I got one of my first jobs ever. I worked for the government. I won't tell you which government, but it was not the American government. And times were good. They had excess money in their budget. and I was spent to go spend $100,000 in the next 2 days. So I went down to the Cadillac dealership, walked in and bought 2 cars at list price, right? 2 Cadillacs at list price. Why would we do that? Only because of this. We thought things were getting better, and we had proven that we could do things when things were bad. Unbelievable, stupid things happen when you have excess money, right? When I had a business, the business with 700 employees I was telling you about, and we got some extra money. We brought in some extra capital and had $3 or $4 million sitting around. So what did I do with it in my infinite wisdom? Well, the first thing I did is I bought those, you know, the laser machines, the logo machines that they have at the NBA games that project the logos down on the floor of the NBA, and the logos dance around on the floor, those things. Well, I got 4 of those. Because you can't have an office with just one of the laser logo dancing machines. You need 4, right? And then I also bought chairs. We bought chairs for all of our employees because, you know, you have to have a chair, right, to sit in. How much does a chair cost? Well, I bought Aeron chairs, which are $1,100 each, right? Because I had the money. The dumbest things ever when you have money. You just make stupid, stupid decisions. When you start your business when things are bad and your business stays afloat for a year, you have made it. That is an incredible sign of success. So, we want to argue that starting when times are bad is actually good for the business because it forces you to live within a smaller budget. It forces you to not spend money frivolously. It forces you to bootstrap. Well, here's a word we haven't used yet, bootstrap. Does everyone know what that means? Bootstrap is referring to digging your foot out of the mud because there's so much mud that you can't move your own feet and you have to reach down with your bootstrap and pull your foot out of the mud because that's how bad things are. In our world, it means I'm going to start my business with no money. $500, $5,000 at the absolute maximum. And that's what I'm going to start my business with. And it forces you to make good business decisions. I can't afford that right now. Advertising is more expensive, so I'm not going to buy the new desk or whatever. I'm not going to fly to California for a 1-hour meeting. I'm just going to do it over the telephone. It won't be as good, but you know what? It's going to save me $4,000 because I'm bootstrapping. I think I've started like 15 businesses in my life. One time I started with $1 million to start a business. It was called Phoenix Medical Technologies. It was a company that allowed online booking for doctor's appointments and stuff like that. It was about 15 years ago, way before its time. Very good idea now, horrible idea then. And I spent $2 million in a year and blew it and had 0 sales. 0 sales. The other businesses that I've started, I've never had any money to start a business with. My 700-person business, we started entirely on hawked credit cards. So if we needed an ad, we'd put it on a credit card and hope that we could pay it off in 2 or 3 months and just paid the minimum for as long as possible. Started my first business entirely on borrowed money from a credit card, right? But because of that, what did I do in terms of work? I worked really, 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 really hard. Never took a day off. As a matter of fact, in that business, I didn't take a day off for 7 years, including Christmas and New Year's, because those were actually some of our busiest days. Did tons of work on those days. But because times were bad when I started my business, we didn't have money, so we couldn't make the stupid financial decisions, and it forced us to make the business profitable from day one because we couldn't have you know these businesses that are sort of profitable for a couple of years and you grow into your sales and eventually you make money? Well, I couldn't afford to do that because I would have been broke. You know, I couldn't do that because I had these credit card bills to pay off, right? So it forces you to be more aggressive with your sales. The first year of my business, I'll tell you what it was summer camps, right? Nothing sexy about summer camps. Right? Remember my point a few minutes ago that a business doesn't have to be sexy to be interesting? Well, what if it's, okay, so we've acknowledged, does everyone acknowledge that summer camps is a non-sexy business? Right? Would we acknowledge that? Well, what if we put our summer camps at cool places like Stanford and MIT and Georgetown and UCLA? Is it getting sexier now? And what if we had, instead of say, 50 kids at a summer camp, what if we had 100,000 kids at summer camp at one time. Is it getting sexier? And what if our profit margin was, say, $700 a week per kid, and we had hundreds of thousands of kids every week? Is it getting sexy now? It's getting sexy now, isn't it, right? Getting really sexy. All of that was done with $200, $300 borrowed off of a credit card. And so when we realized that we had to make this credit card payment, and we would go to the mailbox every day and open it to see if there was any money in there, and for months there was nothing. The vacuum of the mailbox would suck us into it, right? We realized we needed to get more aggressive with our marketing because we could see that we were not making progress. And so we did crazy stuff that you would never do today, stuff that would get you in jail today. Like we would go on the AOL teen chat rooms, and go, what are you guys doing for summer? And they'd go, oh, we don't have any plans yet. What are you doing? Well, I'm going to computer camp at Stanford. Maybe you could come too. We'd so get in jail for that these days. It's so immoral what we did, but it worked, right? And we ended up getting 98 kids our first year, but we did it because we were forced to bootstrap. It's so critical that we didn't have money to spend, because when you do have money to spend, you do stupid stuff. Well, maybe that ad will work in its third month. It didn't work in the first 2 months, but let's run it again to see if in the third month it starts to get some traction. No, an ad works day one or it doesn't work ever, right? And so it forced us to, well, that ad didn't work. Maybe we should do a new ad, until we found one that worked. It also made us get our value proposition better. For example, our first value proposition was, we'll take care of your kids and return them mostly alive. We're going to be pretty good. We're not going to let your kids get too bad during the day. Is that an interesting value proposition? No. We got a little bit better, and eventually we realized what we were doing was, oh, you came here because we're at Stanford and MIT. Now I see why you came here. So our value proposition became, we will take care of your kids at Stanford and MIT. Right? Still not a very good value proposition. A couple of years later, because we were doing this all ourselves and we didn't outsource any of the marketing, and I spoke to every single customer and every single parent who came through, I knew. Eventually we learned that what we were doing was taking unhappy kids that had never been happy in their life before because they weren't good at sports, weren't good at academics, and finally, for the first time ever, we made that kid happy. Is that an interesting value proposition? I'm sorry, ma'am, does your child have social issues? Does your child come home crying some days? This is the perfect experience for your child. We're going to teach your child that being smart is cool. We're going to give your child a new best friend. A week from now, your child's going to come home smiling with a best friend. Has your child had a friend before? Oh, they haven't. Oh, we're going to give you that friend. We're going to find someone else that thinks that Shakespeare is the coolest thing on earth. And that will be your daughter's new best friend. Now, what is that value proposition worth? Billion. I mean, how many weeks are you signing up for, ma'am? They didn't even ask how much it cost. They just paid, right? Because think about it, if you have a kid that's not happy, what would you pay to make that kid happy and have a friend? Anything, regardless of the cost, right? We wouldn't have discovered that if I had been able to outsource my marketing. If I could afford to have hired you to do the marketing, I would never have learned that. Do you see that? So, we want you to do it yourselves. Also, it makes you hungrier, right? It makes you hungrier, and so I believe very strongly that as an entrepreneur, you need to be hungry, and a lot of money will not make you hungry, right? So one of the worst things that an entrepreneur can have is a supportive spouse, right? You need a supportive spouse to say, yes, honey, I love you, you can go start a business. But you also need a spouse that says, you've had 2 years. I'm tired of supporting you, right? You need that kind of support as well. You need to get kicked out of the nest as well. Another thing, if you are operating in a down cycle like right now we're in a negative economy, things are cheaper now. You can negotiate prices better now. I negotiate every price. And my favorite story is 12 years ago, I got divorced because of being an entrepreneur, and we'll talk about that. That will come up. And I needed to buy new toys for my kids, right? Because all their toys were going with mom, and my house needed toys. So I walked into the toy store and said, I'm buying $1,000 of toys today at a 30% discount. Is this the store I'm buying them in? And how many of you would go into Toys R Us and go up to the manager and say, I want a 30% discount today? Well, you only do that if you're broke, desperate, and wolf-like hungry, right? And by the way, will Toys R Us give you a 30% discount? They gave me 35% discount that day. Because I said, I'm going to buy $1,000 of toys today, right now, in the next hour. Do you want to be a part of that, or can I go down the street? There's another store down the street. Go to Walmart. Make them the same offer. You will be surprised how many people will discount. Marriott will give you half-price room if you call and beg for it. They will. If your clout score is high enough, they'll give you a free room, right? Do we all know what clout is? Clout is a social media website that tells you how important you are based on how much social media you do, right? So if you do a lot of social media, supposedly you're important in the world and you can get discounts and stuff. All of that's very, very true. So I believe that when an economy is bad, you use that to your advantage. Aggressively go out there and argue prices, because you're going to be buying services from people who are desperate to sell them. So we would go to Stanford and say, we want to have a program here at your university, but we need a discount. And they would give it to us. We got discounts everywhere. You're not going to get if you don't ask. And what's the worst thing that they can say to you? Sorry, we don't do that. Well, then you just walk out the door, right? I do this with restaurants here in Atlanta still to this day. I eat at the same 10 restaurants repeatedly, but I eat at P.F. Chang's because I know I'm going to get half price, right? Can you go into a restaurant and say, I want half price for the perpetuity of me walking into this restaurant? Have you ever tried it? I've tried it. I eat half price at P.F. Chang's forever. I also know the CEO, but they don't know that I know the CEO because I called him up to talk to him. They think I have like a friendship with him, and so they give me, there are ways to accomplish this, and every price is worth negotiating. Can you get your membership at the chamber reduced? Have you tried? It's worth trying. A lot of you have other jobs, have come from places. Will, this will be one of your problems, right? When I worked at Coca-Cola, I had a secretary and all sorts of nice features and things that went with my job. And so when times are bad, though, you can't afford all of those things. You can't afford to have the same corporate lifestyle that you did as a corporate executive. But if times are good, you're going to try it, right? You're going to say, I need my first hire. What's my first hire? A secretary, a receptionist to answer the door. Are you serious? That's the dumbest thing you could ever do. The first hire is always a salesperson, right? To go out and sell more. And so this idea of who we're going to hire, what we're going to pay them, all of these are affected by the economy, right? In an economy that's bad, can you get someone at lower than what they're worth? All the time, all the time. You got 72 at your last job? We can't afford to pay that. We can pay 52. Do you still want the job? And in the economy, that's a good likelihood that they will say yes. Also in this economy with so many 20-year-olds unemployed, 20, 25, 30-year-olds, right? Apparently a third of the people in their 20s are still living at home, right? What do you need to pay those people to get them out of the house? Right? They would probably pay you to move out of their parents' house, right? And so if you can go to them and say, it's your first job, I can only afford $23,000 a year. In a good economy, they're not going to take that. In today's economy, you will find a great person who can do that. A great person. I have a job opening right now from one of my companies, and I'm offering $15,000 a year. But I'm also saying that I don't care where you live or work. I don't care when you do this job. Do it in the middle of the night for all I care. And I don't care what else you do on the side. It's not an 8-hour-a-day job. It's like a 5-hour-a-day job, 4 maybe. What am I telling the person? I'm not going to be your sole income stream. Could I do that if the economy were great? I don't think I could get away with it, right? So I like starting a company when the economy is bad, because if it works, it will work forever. If you started a company when the economy is good, you have no guarantee that that company will survive when the economy gets bad. So now we are very fortunate to be in a bad economy, right? It will make your businesses stronger. If you can sell now, you can sell great when the economy rebounds, if it ever does, right? It's so counterintuitive, but it's just really, really true. And here's some examples of companies that have been started when the economy was bad. And you see a pretty impressive list of companies up there, right? I think that has something to do with the fact that they were in bad economies when they got started, right? And almost every one of these companies had a major change in their cycle too. You know, they all went through different phases. You know, what did IBM start off as? Yeah, cash registers, stuff like that. Certainly not what they do now. Close. What did Wrigley start off as? Sugar supplier. And then gum. Is there a transition there? They couldn't sell the sugar, so they made gum out of it themselves. What did Walt Disney start off as? In movies, but off-color movies. He started in the bad type of movies and couldn't make a living, so he's like, I'll go the other direction. And did kid movies and made a fortune. You should check it. Google what Walt Disney's first movie was about. You won't like it. Or maybe you will. Anyway, all of these companies started when times were bad. Don't tell me that the economy is bad now is not a good time to start the company. It's the exact opposite. All right, as I said at the beginning, you can't do it yesterday, so you have to go do it now. There's no excuse. And every day you delay is a day that you get more and more comfortable with your inertia, right? I got by yesterday. I can get by tomorrow. So I don't need to start the company. I'll start it next month when things are looking better. I'm going to take a month to get ready. I'm going to get my mortgage situation taken care of. I'm going to get all of that worked out, and then I'm going to start my company. Well, what happens? Oh, I have another problem. I'll do it next month. I'll do it next month, right? And it never happens. Now, so the next 3 lessons are going to take the 3 biggest fears you have. I know what they are. I know what your excuses are. I know why you're not being entrepreneurial today. And we're going to obliterate all 3 of those excuses so that there's no reason at all not to do it except for right now. All right? And so we will do that in just a second. Oh, I love this one. Look at that. Look at that guy before and after. That's a pretty powerful picture, isn't it? And I love this proverb, Chinese proverb. The teacher can open the door for you, but you must go in by yourself. And this American proverb, I think my father made that one up. It's the whole thing about raising your hand up over your head, saying, I am going to be the one who moves forward. Me. All right?